When you're really good at something and you lose your job for whatever reason, you're not going to be out of work for long. Jordy Nelson got laid off by the Packers for salary cap reasons, but quickly found a new employer ready to pay for his services, signing a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Raiders, according to our Adam Schefter. Enter Nelson to Oakland and exit Crabtree. Oakland cut receiver Michael Crabtree, who had 58 catches for 618 yards and 8 touchdowns last season. But Crabtree might not be out of work for long. The 30-year-old will visit the Ravens today. Keeping it in the Bay Area, new 49ers quarterback Richard Sherman claims that Pete Carroll's message as Seahawks coach is getting stale. Sherman told the Uninterrupted's The Tomahawk Show podcast, quote, "A lot of us have been there 6, 7, 8 years, and his philosophy is more built for college. 4 years, guys rotate in, rotate out, and so we had kind of heard all his stories. And they're cool stories. They're great for team chemistry and building, et cetera, et cetera. We could recite them before he even started to say them," end quote. More First Take right now.
Thank you. Always good to have Teddy Bruschi here with us.
Hi, Molly.
Hi. Hey, question for you. How did Arizona do yesterday?
Stop. Don't.
How'd they
I don't
do?
even want to go there.
Bear down.
No.
Bear down,
That's
baby.
right. We will bear down. We're moving on.
All right. I'll go to Max.
That's a shot. My bracket's busted.
Of course it is. Max, everybody says. Who looks worse after those comments, Richard Sherman or Pete Carroll?
First of all, I want to say I don't think anyone looks particularly bad. If Richard Sherman's asked a question, he responds. But if the question is who looks worse, then the answer is the one doing the talking about the other one, right? If he's putting it out in the media, even if he's asked a direct question, that does not make him look better compared to the guy who's not talking. But what he actually said about a coach it becomes, as they say, white noise. And this is a well-known phenomenon in sports. Certain coaches, in baseball, they say it's like 10 years. After about 10 years, you got to get a new manager, even if he's successful, because the message gets stale or there becomes more of a generational gap. But in football, maybe, Teddy, you can speak to this better than anyone. Maybe one of the successes that Belichick has had is that not only does he obviously know how to coach, but there's tremendous turnover with the Patriots. Many guys don't stick around long enough for the message to get stale. But Richard Sherman's not suggesting that there's some new phenomenon with Pete Carroll. This happens, and it's one of the reasons, one of the several why I thought they should have traded everyone that they were going to trade a year early instead of a year late.
Go ahead, Teddy. Okay, well, in terms of what you're talking about, Max, and I'll use the word in terms of stale, messages getting stale. I played for Bill for a long time. I was with the Patriots my entire career. Bill's message to me never got stale. Did it get repetitive? Yes. But what you have to understand when you play for an organization that long and you want to be a part of an organization, a championship organization, which I believe also what Seattle is over there for that long, you have to understand. When you become old and then all of these younger guys coming up, for them to get to where you are right now, they have to hear those initial messages. They have to hear what that coach is trying to teach. They have to hear, do your job. They have to hear all the things that Bill said over and over again when you were a young player, because they're the young player now. You have to have the maturity as the veteran player and realize you understand what your head coach is trying to do. He's trying to establish his culture within new players, within younger players, with rookie players who don't know him, who don't know the message, who can't repeat the message every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday meetings like you can. You have to respect that. You have to respect that these players don't know and you do. So with that, you still have to have your sort of interpretation of it. It becomes redundant. It becomes repetitive. Yes, it is. But now it's what you make of it. Do you understand what he's trying to do? And obviously, if Richard Sherman got bored by it, I played for Pete also. I know about, turnover Thursdays, no repeat Fridays, now he has to tell the truth Mondays, those type of cliches and stuff. Of course, that's the way it was every single week. I remember Pete also, but still, you have to look beyond that with your maturity and becoming that veteran player and helping and maintaining that championship level by nurturing these younger players and teaching the message to them too, helping your head coach out.
Well, see, for me, my opinion is just entirely different. I'm not refuting the likelihood or the possibility of either your statements or that of Max, Ted. My position is much more simpler, though. I believe from the moment that they blew that Super Bowl, everything changed. Now, Richard Sherman has denied that. He's come on First Take, and he denied it. He thinks that story has been overblown. I respect it. He's a part of it. He's a part of the Legion of Boom. He's a part of what we're talking about. He's more qualified than me in terms of actually knowing. But I can express what I believe because many, many times throughout history in sports, we've seen one athlete after another, one coach after another, one official after another categorically deny something, and then all of a sudden we see that it was true, whether it be on 30 for 30 or something else. We find that it was truth to those assertions that were being made. And I believe that one day that's exactly what will happen here about the Legion of Boom and the demise that is transforming before our very eyes. From the moment Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevell decided to throw a pass over the middle from Russell Wilson instead of giving the ball to beast mode at the half-yard line with a Super Bowl title on the line, I think everything started going downhill from there because even though you were playing for Pete Carroll, even back then his message may have been the same. His message may have been redundant. But as you pointed out, Teddy, you still knew the man knew what he was talking about. You were a Super Bowl champion prior to that. There was a level of cachet and credibility that he had. So even though you know the message, you appreciate the fact that he's regurgitating it to you. And more importantly, it's motivating you because you know it has validity to it because it's worked for you in the past. But the second that play happened, I think that changed everything. And here's why I believe it changed everything. Because I don't think they believe that that was just a great football call that went awry. I believe that you have players on that team who believed they didn't want beast mode to come to the rescue. They wanted Russell Wilson to be the guy that saved the day. And that really rubbed a lot of guys the wrong way. And I don't think they ever let go of it. I think to this very day, it sickens them to their stomach about it. A Super Bowl championship was lost because of what I consider to be the dumbest call in the history of Super Bowls. And I think that the players have held on to that. They have not let it go. They will never let it go. It's just not appropriate for them to admit it at this particular moment in time.
And then if you are correct in that, if you are correct with that belief, then I'd say it's definitely time to move on in Seattle and get rid of all those players that possibly do not believe, are thinking the way that you think, thinking that they took away a Super Bowl championship from us. They called the wrong play, not able to get over it. No.
Right.
I think that's what made us so successful in New England. We got over things. I mean, distractions, everything. You just got over things. Do I think of when we lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl in 2007 when Plaxico Burress caught that bomb over Ellis Hobbs, and I think, man, maybe if we didn't call an all-out blitz right there and had more coverage that way, we would have had that contested a little bit more? I think that, yes, but I do not hold those feelings of resentment that you're talking about, Stephen A., if you're right about them feeling that towards their head coach. If you resent your head coach and the organization and that never goes away, it's time. And maybe Pete feels this. And so it's, you know what? You guys can't get over this. It's time. We got to move on and bring in some guys here that maybe don't feel that way and maybe weren't even here when that happened.
Stephen A., I know we have obviously a football expert and a great football player and multiple-time champion Teddy here, but I have a question for you. When you say that, and I read between the lines because you not only hear from a lot of NBA players, you hear from a lot of NFL people too. So when I hear you say that, we've discussed it before on the show, it means that, to me, that you're hearing things, not just kind of inventing them in your own mind. And so I'm wondering if that decision was fraught because attached to it was this feeling that the defense was being overlooked, the defense running back, that kind of mentality was being overlooked in favor of the golden boy who they wanted to get all the glory. Does it then become an issue of the play better work? Like, in other words, if the play works, this isn't an issue? Or is it only an issue because the play didn't work and they didn't win the Super Bowl?
It's an issue because the play didn't work, but more importantly, it's an issue because it was something that they didn't think should have ever happened. You know, in other words, why would you do something like this? If Russell Wilson, was flat out balling, would you have taken the ball out of his hands and decided to give it to beast mode in a crucial moment like that? You have guys that are thinking like that. Now, obviously, Teddy, they respect Pete Carroll. They know that Pete Carroll knows football. They don't dislike the man or anything like that. I'm not trying to take it like that. I'm trying to say to you that the residual impact of that play, look at what has happened with Seattle, not just in terms of wins and losses. Look at some of the things that have happened in the locker room. Look at some of the things that have happened on the sidelines. Look at, what is it, Earl Thomas running down to say what's up to Jason Garrett and basically let him know I wouldn't mind being here and stuff like that. Those are the kind of things that would have never happened prior to that Super Bowl loss. But once the Super Bowl went down the way that it went down, everything changed.
Well, let me say this. First of all, I think it's an oversight for anyone that has resentment about that play, about the overall just sort of, man, awesomeness of the play of Malcolm Butler. How often have we seen that play repeated? That is a rare play when you have that pick route and you're still able to make that interception. Not being able to recognize and just say, man, it's a great play. They got us. Has it worked for us before? Yes. High percentage of times that play works and you get a touchdown. But, man, you know what? The guy made a great play. If you're not able to recognize that, and instead you're the type of player that would rather place blame on the play, place blame on the coach. If you're that way, usually, I like to say championship players, but those type of championship players usually aren't lasting. Okay, they're not lasting. If you're ready to point them instead of pointing the finger, instead of pulling the thumb, and then recognizing the play. There's a problem there too, Stephen A.
Yeah, but there's a sequence that can't be ignored here, Teddy. Like, for example, it was a damn good game, no doubt about that. But if you remember on that key drive, Russell Wilson lobbed a pass to beast mode down the left sideline. It was a then it was a miracle play where Curse caught it, the bobbled reception that he ultimately called down there. And then after that, beast mode comes, and what does he do? He runs for 4.5 yards.
Half-yard line, yes.
On the next carry. So he gets you to the half-yard line, and New England was vulnerable in the run all afternoon. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's not about the play itself. It's about the sequence of events that were taking place that lent itself towards you doing anything other than that. And the fact that you would elect to do something like that and essentially throw away a Super Bowl, that is how some guys,
even in the biggest,
that's how they were looking at it.
Even in the biggest of losses, myself, I can only talk about the way I handle things. I never looked to place blame.
Unique,
I never looked to place blame. You always look to yourself and what you could have done better.
How many Teddy Bruschies out there? Answer that for me. And how many Teddy Bruschies do you know in the NFL? Do you know, Teddy?
Stephen A., I'm just saying, when you get a group that would rather blame instead of just recognizing the whole, there's a problem there from the jump. We should have seen it in the offseason about how upset they were after that Super Bowl, and they kept blaming, or they heard all the side channels of letting it out about, they wanted Russell as the MVP. We should have seen it then. We should have seen this breakup coming because they weren't able to move on from it and continue to win championships. And that's a big problem in Seattle.
We're talking about it.
And that's why probably Pete is getting rid of them now.
That's right. They'll say they were ready. They did move on. They'll say they did move on. It's clear. Look at what's happened since.
We're still talking about
it years later.
I'm still reading this. Kind of lost their way a little bit. We're still reading about this.
All right. So Sherman, Paul Richardson, Jimmy Graham all signed elsewhere, leaving Seattle. Teddy, appreciate it.
Sure.
Bringing the hot take. Coming up, is Colin Kaepernick not the only player being blackballed by the NFL? Eric Reed now says his protest is the reason he's not in the league. We debate if that's what's really going on here. And the Trailblazers, sneaky good, and they snuck up on the Cavs last night. Is it time to start taking them seriously? Don't touch that dial.